We all know that Xaku is one of the best frames for practically any content inside of the game. They can easily solo any mission type and allow you to actually just go AFK because their guns will just play the game for you. The reason I'm covering Xaku again today is not because the previous video I had on them was terrible or anything, but more so because I would like to show everybody what I believe to be possibly the most broken helmet currently available to them, Nourish. But before we get started, I would just like to quickly remind everybody that I do have a Patreon now. Go check it out at the link in the description below to directly influence the content that gets made on this channel. A huge thanks to all of my patrons: The Bad Monk, Scotty Knows, Young Mung, Bored Platypus, Matt Goat, 𝘵𝘢𝘐𝘗𝘐, Bad Robot, and Jay the Rabbit. You guys are awesome and help make all of this possible. But getting on back to the video. First off, Nourish provides all of our weapons with viral damage, which makes the combination of corrosive and viral possible, as normally it isn't. It also gives you an energy multiplier, affecting all sources of energy income, even things like 𝘫𝘦𝘢𝘵𝑗𝑦𝑒𝑙𝑙𝑎𝑏. And finally, when you are damaged, you will send out a wave of energy that will prime all enemies it hits with 1 stack of viral. Now, I've already outlined why this is so strong in a recent YouTube short that I did, so go check it out, link in the cards right now. But what is it doing for Xaku here? Well, first off, this buff actually applies to all allies. You might notice I am playing solo in this gameplay, but that is because similar to the likes of Revenant and his thralls, Xaku can also make allies out of their enemies with one of their third ability's 3 functions, Accuse. Accuse has Xaku turn a limited number of enemies in a circle into their own allies. You can tell they are allies because they have a sort of void energy effect on them. While enemies are under the effects of Accuse, you can actually buff them with Nourish. You can tell they are buffed because they have this blue glow around them. But when they are buffed with Nourish, damaging them will cause them to send out the viral wave, which also damages other enemies, which again sends out another viral wave. This is because enemies under the effects of Accuse are counted as neutral allies, which means they can damage other enemies, but I can also damage them myself even though they are technically on my team. Combine this with Xaku's other third ability, 𝘵𝘠𝘠𝘗, which full strips enemies in an area, Accuse them, buff them with Nourish, and strike them once with my epitaph, and yeah. It gets even better than that though. Xaku's second ability, Grasp of Lohk, steals enemy weapons and has them shoot back at other enemies. Now, with a full armor strip, these guns actually do kill pretty well. But pair it up with viral and your guns get a 325% damage increase, which is almost always consistent because the damaged enemies send out so many waves of viral that everything in the area will have 10 stacks. Combining this again with combat discipline, which gives self damage on kill, which the guns can proc, and you get another wave of viral every time you get a kill, albeit on a 2-second cooldown. You do need to be careful when using this setup because it is remarkably easy to kill yourself because the KPM of this build is so very high that if you don't pay attention to your health, you will do too much self damage and of course, die. There are a couple ways we can get around this though. Bolt Reconstruct provides us with health as we cast our abilities. Notice my health in the top right corner going up after I cast Xaku's 4th. But this does require us to lose one of our arcane slots. So instead, I like to use 𝘫𝘢𝘐𝑒𝑙𝑎𝑏. 𝘫𝘢𝘐𝑒𝑙𝑎𝑏 is an operator arcane that provides your Warframe with 300 health when you transference in and out of the frame. We can also regain health passively because of Equilibrium. Equilibrium allows us to gain health from energy orbs and of course vice versa. To pick up these orbs at max health, just run Synth Deconstruct on your Panzer 𝘵𝘍𝘍𝑒𝘍. The Panzer also has more utility though. Synth Deconstruct states that enemies injured by your companions have a 25% chance to drop a health orb. The viral quills from your Panzer will count for this, which also primes enemies with viral, which is the status we want for Xaku's guns. And trust me, we're going to want as much health to energy orbs as possible because this is a 45 efficiency build. But that isn't really that big of a deal because the Vast Untime, Xaku's 4th ability, pauses the duration of all of our other abilities. Without the Vast Untime being active, the duration on all of our abilities will tick down, but casting it will turn him into a skeletal form and also pause the duration on all of our abilities except for our helmet. Unfortunately, that isn't a big deal because you want to be recasting Nourish a lot to continuously buff our allies with the viral wave. It also weakens enemies to void damage, which increases the damage that our guns do and also applies a slow to enemies scaling with strength. Finally, it provides a speed bonus, allowing Xaku to sprint much faster in the skeletal form, and it provides a 75% dodge chance, which means that some enemies will shoot you and you will just outright not be hit. Moving on back to the Xaku build though, all Xaku builds build for pretty much maximum range because for some reason, range scales the amount of guns that they steal from enemies. Maximum range allows Xaku to steal 16 guns from enemies and of course determines the range at which they can shoot. It also provides benefits for Nourish as it gives a much wider range on the AoE viral pulse, which does translate to all affected allies. This also gives 𝘵𝘠𝘠𝘗 an absolutely massive 70-meter range, of which any enemy that walks in will be fully armor stripped. And you can have 2 of these up at once, giving you a huge area of coverage of full armor strip. And the range on Xaku's 4th ability is also at 70 meters, which makes it a great tool for priming enemies and also bricking boxes. So while range is very important for Xaku, so is strength. Strength scales the amount of targets affected by Accuse and the armor strip provided. It also does scale the damage of Grasp of Lohk, but that mainly goes off of enemy level, so you don't really need to worry about building strength for this ability specifically. Finally, for Nourish, it increases the energy multiplier granted and the viral damage increase. The latter of which not being super important because this is a DPS build using Xaku's Grasp of Lohk. But the strength value needed for a full strip of 100% with Gaze is 200%. So how do we achieve that? Because we are using Overextended, which does reduce our strength by 60. Well, Blind Rage would put us at 139 strength, and then using Multi-Augmented to get more strength as we get kills would put us exactly at 199, which is actually 1% less than what we would need here. I have slightly more strength in this because I do have 2 Crimson Archon shards slotted in my Xaku, but for those of you who don't, there are a couple ways to get around this. Using Growing Power in the Aura slot over Combat Discipline gives you that extra 1% needed, bringing you to 224, and also allows you to drop Arcane Avenger for another Arcane of your choice. Otherwise, you could use Power Drift in your Excellence slot for that extra 15%, but that does mean you would lose out on one gun going from 16 to 15. You could also use Matarai for the Sling Strength bonus to put you above 200%. This does Snapshot, which means abilities casted while this is active will keep this buff, and Xaku's 4th does pause their duration, but this will not be permanent per se. And that means you have to lose out on Zenoric's Energy Pulse and Wellspring to keep up your energy because you are running 45 efficiency. And remember, Nourish does buff both of these abilities, giving you significantly more energy in the end. So if you don't feel like investing 2 shards in your Xaku, I just recommend you swap out your Excellence slot for Power Drift. You will lose out on one gun, but I find having a full strip is a bit better than having one more gun. Finally, duration does affect how often you would need to cast the Vast Untime, but you should be doing this anyways because it primes enemies with a void damage weakness, which obviously increases the KPM of your guns. And the same goes for Nourish. You'll be recasting it a lot because your accused enemies will die pretty often sometimes, so you want to keep rebuffing them with this. I like to use the Phantasma because the Arcane Avenger provides it with a 45% flat crit chance bonus, and the status of Heat, Radiation, and Corrosive paired up with the Viral that Nourish provides turns this thing into an absolute monster that just melts any enemies that your guns won't kill quick enough, which is seldom to find. But even the alt fire is still garbage with all this power. On your epitaph, you want to have at least 2 augur mods plus 2 augur mods on your build, those being Reach and Message, as these allow you to shield gate really easily with Xaku's 4th, as on this build with 45 efficiency, it costs 150 energy to cast, which is way more than enough to shield gate with a single cast, and you will be casting it a lot. Acolytes are also a non-issue because any decent build on your Kratos, which I do use for mobility, will shred them, while the guns are also damaging enemies around you and the Acolyte itself. But that is going to do it for this video, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this one. Another look at Xaku with an admittedly more interesting build than just running around and spamming Terrify compared to my last one, which some people apparently got very mad at if you want to go read the comments on that video. But I just want to say thank you so much for all the support we've been receiving lately. We are about to hit 7,000 on the road to 10K, and that is just, that is a mind-blowing milestone for me. So I'm very excited to hit that with you guys coming soon. And yeah, so I appreciate all of you for watching this one. Go check out my Discord at the link below and take a look at my Patreon if you don't mind. And I'll see all of you guys in the next one. Peace.